Good day everybody. Today we are going to talk about the Bush Biomass Quantification tool. It's a tool that was developed for the biomass quantification of woody plants. It is making use of measurements and it can estimate biomass objectively and in a non-destructive manner. I'm just going to take you through the tool for a while. The tool consists of three phases. Normally it's the general information phase, then you get the data input phase, and then you get the results in the report phase. On the general information phase, there's some info to be entered. Some are compulsory, others is not. So I'm just going to enter a little bit of information here, just for you to see what is happening. I just enter my name here. And if you see, if I move on, normally it changes from gray to yellow, and that is just an indication that what you have filled in and what not. Normally the coordinates are compulsory, so I'll just put in some coordinates there for the sake of this video. And you can see now the coordinates are cleared and we can move on. The sample area is also compulsory. You can choose either whether you use a belt transect, which is length and a width, or if you have an alternative area, like for example collecting data in a circle and so on. Normally if you enter transect, the required ones, and you also enter the alternative, then it gives you an error, so you only have to use one or the other. So in this case, let's use the alternative area, and let's say we collected data in a 200 square meter circle. Now after you have done that, the measurement options are displayed here in the middle. You have got stem diameter, canopy diameter, tree height, and height where canopy is the broadest. So these are the different measurements here and the combinations thereof and their accuracy values. What it also tells you is that there's a tree equivalent and evapotranspiration tree equivalent offered. So depending on your measurement, you get either of the one or both or none of them. So once you are now comfortable with your measurements and your accuracies, now you can choose a measurement option. For the sake of this video, let us choose this measurement option: tree height, height where canopy is the broadest, and canopy diameter. And see, it's highlighted for me. Let us take this option: tree height, height where canopy is the broadest, and canopy diameter. Once I click here, there's a drop down list of all the species. Let's take for example Senegalia mellifera. Let's say it's a 3.5 meter plant. The height where canopy is the broadest is 3 meters, and canopy diameter, let's say it's 4 meters. Now our next plant would be most probably a plant which is not part of the species list. So we'll have to add it to the species list. And let's say it's for example Boschia albitrunca. That will be a microphilous plant, so we'll put a 1. And normally a 1 is from all microphilous plants and 2 is for broadleaf plants. So once we have done that, we have actually now added Boschia albitrunca to the species name. So let's give a bit figures for Boschia. Let's say it's 2.5, it's 2, and it's 4. So in this case, what it's going to do, it's going to now quantify biomass for Boschia albitrunca, and we don't want that. So what we will be doing is we will just enter the name Boschia albitrunca and we will not put in any data for it. Let's just add one more tree for the sake of, let's take Terminalia sericea. Now we'll have to add, let's say it's the same as 3.5, 3, and 4 for example. So in this part, this is how you enter your data. You can still come back to the species list, add more species. All the species that you add here will obviously come to the species name list, and you can just select it from there and add its measurements to it. Just remember, for protected species, don't enter any measurements because you don't want biomass to be quantified for them. So after having entered the data that was collected during fieldwork, you have to move over to the results part. This is the results. Now you can see that everything that you have entered in the general information part is displayed in this first part, in this first corner of the results sheet. You can also see that I used an alternative area and I did not use a transect. So the transect length and width is 0, but alternative area, that is a 200, which I've entered from the beginning. What is second is there are some general plant densities of the main species that was used to develop this tool. Further on, you will have your biomass. Normally the biomass is in kilogram dry matter per hectare, and once you have a land size here, then you can just enter land size and it gives you in tonnage for that specific land size. Normally, when it comes to the biomass quantification, we use coding. So microphilous plants, they have got a certain code, and broadleaf plants, they have a certain code. And that means that any other species falling in that group of microphilous or broadleaf is being estimated from the code of being broadleaf or microphilous. In order to thin, because this is your total biomass, whenever you want to do thinning, you will have to enter rainfall. So let's just enter, for the sake of this video, 150 millimeters of rainfall, and then you can see your TE and ETTE is already preset. You can change it, but normally the first value, and there's a space, and then other values follow. The other values are for very specific situations where you need very specific thinning conditions. But generally the 1.5, that's for TE, and 10, that's for ETTE. That's the thinning guidelines for woody plants. And this just means that the higher the rainfall, the more woody plants you can accommodate without negatively affecting the grass. Then you can see what is your thinning biomass. It differs drastically from your total biomass, and then you can also see how many TEs you must remove in order for you to get that biomass. The next is the bush feed part. You also have total and bush feed through thinning, and that is the same principle as the wood. It covers the same principle. And the other part is normally some trees are deciduous trees, meaning that they lose their leaves during the winter months. And in this case, we would like to track how the biomass in terms of bush feed will be changing. So a few things to be answered first. Are you going to take all plants, or are you going to do thinning? It all depends what the farmer or the harvester is doing. Let's say we are taking thinning here, and from the thinning plants we are only taking 25% per plant, and then it's giving you the biomass quantification. If you say, for example, all plants, and you take 100% of all plants, then you are basically clearing, and it gives you a much higher biomass quantification. And that is now for bush feed only. Taking it further, let's say you want a certain amount of biomass, be it wood or bush feed, then you actually just enter the amount of biomass, let's say 500 kilogram, and then you can see how much land is needed to get that a certain amount of biomass, and the same for bush feed. The last part, second last part, is basically the detailed plant species density. Now you can see for Boscia albitranca, it is part of species composition plants per hectare, but it's not part of wood biomass, because we've just entered the name and it didn't record any measurements for it, and that's what we want, for it to be part of the species composition while not contributing wood, because it's a plant which is not to be harvested since it is a protected plant. The very last part of this video is just some height classes, which is for detailed information for monitoring purposes, so that you can see what a person measured. You can see, for example, in this survey there was one plant between 1.5 and 3 meters. There was another plant greater than 4.5 meters. So the maximum plant height that was measured is 5 meters and the median 3. As soon as you enter more and more plants, you will also get data for mode and median. So that's it for now for this video. I hope you enjoy biomass quantification.